But I'm actually going to start the show really with Trump's war of choice in Iran, of course, because we are now on day 27 of the conflict. And gas prices as of today have increased by a full $1 per gallon in just the last month. I'm sure you all have noticed that. Wall Street just had its worst day since the war began. Iran has categorically rejected Trump's offer to end the war. And even Republicans are irate with the administration over the lack of answers on Iran in the briefings they've done on the Hill just this week. And amid this ongoing crisis, the President of the United States held a cabinet meeting today where normally you would talk about, say, the war you launched 4 weeks ago and the impacts of it and what every cabinet member and agency should be doing about it to bring it to an end, what the strategy is. Well, that wasn't what he was focused on. He was laser focused on, of course, another very important issue facing the American people, the quality of our pens.
See this pen right here? This pen is an interesting example. It's the same thing. So this pen is very inexpensive, but it writes well. I like it. And you know, you hand pens out, you're signing and you hand them out. Beautiful pen, ballpoint. But I'm handing out to kids that don't even know what they're doing. What is this, Mommy? It's kids. They're getting a pen for $1,000. They have no idea what it is. And it had another problem. They didn't write well. So I take it out and I saw it and there's no ink. This one, I called the guy. I said, I'd like to use your pen, but I can't have a gray thing with a big S on it. I can't do that with the press. Use your pen, but I like the pen the best, but I can't use your pen. He said, well, I can make it nicer. I said, that's nice. And I could even paint the White House on it, sir, if you like, in gold. Almost real gold. And by the way, this was not staged. I just saw the pen sitting there and I thought of this as an example.
Okay, I just want to note that we literally had to edit that together because he spoke about the pens for so long. It was more than 4 minutes. That would have taken up way too much time. But I do love the fact that he discloses there at the end that none of that was staged, as if any of us thought the extended riff on pens was part of his strategically written, prepared remarks. I certainly don't think it was. And I promise you, he went on, as I said, about the pens a whole lot longer than that. And when Trump finally did move on, he showed a lot less urgency and a lot less passion about the war he started than he did about America's calligraphy crisis, I guess you could call it. In fact, he said that contrary to all the reporting we're seeing, Iran is actually begging him to make a deal.
And they'll tell you, we're not negotiating. We will not negotiate. Of course they're negotiating. They've been obliterated. Who wouldn't negotiate? They are begging to make a deal. I mean, I read a story today that I'm desperate to make a deal. If I was desperate, he'd be the first to know. Pete, let's get the hell out of there. I'm the opposite of desperate. I don't care.
He's the opposite of desperate, everyone. You heard it there. He doesn't even care if the U.S. makes a deal with Iran somehow. And remember, Trump set a deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by tomorrow, threatening to attack their civilian infrastructure if they don't. Well, late today, Trump announced that he was extending that deadline by 10 days, which doesn't feel like something he should have to do if Iran really is so desperate to make a deal. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Trump wants the public to think that he's got this all in the bag, that we've already won. He says that all the time, that he's just tying up some loose ends, finalizing a few words in the final document. But as much as that might sound like public posturing, Trump might actually believe that he can simply end this war whenever he wants. I mean, today the Wall Street Journal reports that behind the scenes, he's telling aides that he wants the war wrapped up according to his original timeline, which means within the next 2 weeks. Apparently, he's just over it. Multiple people familiar with the matter tell the Journal that, quote, in discussions with outside political allies, his attention has at times shifted to other topics, including the coming midterm elections. Who wants to talk about a war you started when you can talk about house races, I suppose? I mean, not only that, but Trump told an associate that the war was distracting from his other priorities, one source told the Journal. In other words, Trump seems increasingly bored by the war. He wants to focus on other things, like the midterms, of course, or, pens. But as everyone but him seems to understand, it's really just not that simple. You see, Trump has gotten used to the idea that he can make big, disastrous decisions and just reverse himself when he thinks things get out of control, when he sees people don't like it necessarily. I mean, we all watched him do it over and over again with his tariffs, threatening steep duties on imports, watching the markets crash, and then walking it all back. His habit of reversing his own decisions as you all know, even has its own acronym, TACO, as in Trump always chickens out. But the thing is, Trump can't just taco his way out of this war. There are other stakeholders who get a say when the war will end. And whether he likes it or not, Iran is one of them. So is Israel. And their leverage has only increased since he started bombing Iran almost 4 weeks ago. Trump can't just declare mission accomplished and walk away. It's not how it works. And the people around Trump, the ones who are actually carrying out this war, they know that, which is why every report we get on the administration's thinking indicates that they are preparing for a longer, much more protracted conflict. I mean, just before we got on the air, the Wall Street Journal reported that the Pentagon is weighing sending an additional 10,000 troops to the Middle East. That's according to multiple people familiar with the planning. And today, Axios cites 2 U.S. officials who say that the administration is preparing a massive escalation of this war. They're calling it a final blow, but it seems anything but final. It could include the use of ground forces. The plans reportedly include the use of ground forces as well as several options for invading Iranian-controlled territory. There are even preparations for ground operations deep inside the heart of Iran aimed at securing their enriched uranium, which is incredibly difficult to do. All of that suggests a much longer and much deeper conflict that could be incredibly costly, not just in terms of the funding needed, but more importantly in terms of the lives of the American military. I mean, at the same time, Bloomberg cites multiple sources who say that the administration is also preparing for the possibility of oil reaching as much as $200 a barrel, a huge spike that would have major implications for the U.S. economy. And also today, the Washington Post cites 3 sources who say the Pentagon is now considering diverting weapons intended for Ukraine and sending them to the Middle East instead as the conflict there continues to deplete U.S. munitions. Now, on top of all of that, there are signs that the Iranian regime has actually been emboldened by Trump's actions. Reuters reports that Iranian hardliners are now ramping up their calls for their country to build a nuclear bomb. And the Associated Press reports that Iran is now operating the Strait of Hormuz as a de facto toll booth, strengthening their grip on the critical passageway and levying fees on any ships they want to pass through safely. But none of that seems to bother Donald Trump. In fact, Trump now seems perfectly fine with Iran's grip on the Strait of Hormuz. Which brings me to the so-called mystery present from Iran that Trump has been teasing since Tuesday. Because today, he finally revealed what it was.
You know, I told you about a present, right? Steve, can I reveal the present?
You can do anything you want.
Thank you. They said to show you the fact that we're real and solid and we're there. We're going to let you have 8 boats of oil, 8 boats, 8 big boats of oil. And actually, they then apologized for something they said, and they said, we're going to send 2 more boats. And it ended up being 10 boats.
That's right, everyone. The extravagant, expensive mystery present he was so excited about that Trump got from Iran turned out to be that Iran let 8 ships or go through the Strait of Hormuz without blowing them up, or that's reportedly what they committed to. Now, for context here, prior to Trump's war, roughly 110 ships sailed through that strait every day without incident. So I'm not sure that either getting through is something to celebrate that much. I mean, 10 ships, that's a very small percentage of 110 ships per day. Again, 110 per day, 10 just one time. You don't have to be a mathematician. Now, to be clear, Iran shouldn't be interfering with any maritime traffic. But apparently, Trump thinks it's okay if they just let a few ships through here and there as they please. And there were moments today when it actually sounded like he had given up on reopening the Strait of Hormuz altogether.
The amazing thing is we don't need the Hormuz Strait. We don't need it. We don't need it at all. We have so much oil. Our country is not affected by this.
First off, anyone who has filled up their gas tank recently, which is most Americans, can tell you that our country absolutely is affected by this. But more importantly, the president now seems more and more resigned to accept the fallout from this war, even though the American people are growing more and more frustrated. A new Fox News poll out this week finds a full 59% of Americans disapprove of the job Trump is doing as president, his worst performance ever in that poll. And voters in that same poll disapprove of Trump's handling of the war by 28 points. It's not hard to see why Trump would want to move on from all of this.